in student loan debt, more than auto loans or credit card debt. An average African American graduate has $7,400 more in debt than their white peers, and the debt continues for years after they graduate. Joining me to talk about the issue is Dr. Lawrence Potter. He is the Chief Academic Officer and Provost at the University of the District of Columbia. Welcome, Dr. Potter.
Thank you for having me.
So you saw your commencement, and we had a wonderful time there with Dr. Maxine and Dr. Reverend Jackson, 42 times Dr. Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson. They both gave a charge to young people, but this debt issue is an issue that isn't going to go away. What's your perspective?
Well, I think we have to fully understand that, number one, African Americans are not born with intergenerational wealth. And so the very act of Robert Smith paying off the debt for African Americans in the 21st century is not simply paying it forward, he is simply honoring the cause. If you look at most of the institutions in this country, it's quite pricey. And when you compare public versus private education, right here at the university, in the city of the District of Columbia, there's only one public institution. And when you think about the founding of this particular district and the opportunities to access, it's very clear to me in the 21st century that if we're going to level the playing field, if equity is going to be part of the manifesto, then people are going to have to step up. And that's just what Robert Smith did. He stepped up to the plate to honor the cause.
But even if a dozen Robert Smith stepped up, that $1.6 trillion in student loan debt, they can't chip away at. What should happen from a public policy perspective to get rid of this debt?
So I think that there are a couple of things. We need to really think about how we view higher education in terms of the 21st century model, right? It was not designed for us. And so when you consider the shifting demographics, when we talk about parity, higher ed for me means that we're going to have to think about multiple kinds of ways in which students have access to achieve their career ideas or their career goals. And the reality is that doesn't always equate to a baccalaureate degree. There are credentials. We can do stackable credentials. Individuals in today's world are able to make a whole lot of meaning out of life with passion and a job. And so it's not just about being a doctor or an attorney, but it's really about rethinking higher ed and putting the offerings out there and creating opportunities for young people to be able to amass what it is that they think that they want to do.
One of the things about UDC that's exciting is that it is a public institution. So students are not taking out the same kind of debt that they might take out at a Howard or at our private institutions. You also have several paths to success. Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. There are three doors of entry at the University of the District of Columbia. We have workforce development, we have our community college, which is the branch campus of the main campus, and then of course we have the traditional age undergraduate programs that lead through a master's and a doctoral degrees. The reality is that our workforce development or lifelong learning programs are free to residents of the district. So we are subsidizing that. And those programs are continuing education units. It allows individuals to kind of off-ramp, on-ramp, to continue to better themselves in their career paths. At our 2-year college, we do a whole lot of things with respect to pathways into 4-year degrees. So an associate's in nursing, or there may be a general education degree in STEM that leads to biology or chemistry and mathematics. And then at the 4-year campus, the cost is phenomenal. Students can attend the University of the District of Columbia depending on their credit hours and where they come from, anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 a year. So they're not as strapped with the debt. But I think the significant piece is the clientele that we serve. Most of our students are first generation. They're not the traditional 18 to 22-year-olds. We have a lot of returning learners in the district coming back because they've had to stop out for whatever reason. And so when you think about the average age of the student at the University of the District of Columbia, it's 28. And so we're having to meet needs in a more defined, more creative way.
Now, Dr. Potter, the Higher Education Act they're looking at reauthorization of that act. What would you like to see in the reauthorization?
Honestly, when I think about first generation college students, I want to see an increase in Pell. And some are Pell, quite frankly, because our students have to go to school year round. Many of them are working 2 part-time jobs or a full-time job, not just to support themselves, but their families. And the reality is that everything that we can do as a country to increase Pell, to reduce the cost, those are the kinds of things that will be significant.
The Orange Man has in deference to Malik, I won't call him the orange orangutan. The orangutan lobby has asked me not to do that. But the Orange Man is trying to go up in the Pell money and use it and divert some of it. I don't want to get you on a political bandwagon, but what do you say about that?
I really think that sometimes people are making decisions without information. And the reality for me is that before decisions are made, we have 3 branches of government. And, the executive branch can put forward what it is that they want, but the legislative branch needs to act according to how people voted for them. And so that would be kind of my balance, if you will. The idea that acting without information leads to uninformed decisions.
Dr. Potter, you're so diplomatic. I love it. I'm going to bring my panel into the conversation. Cleo Monago, you posted something today on Facebook about increased graduation rates for young black men in Chicago. This really fits into some of what Dr. Potter is talking about. Tell us a bit about the story about how young black men are graduating more frequently in Chicago than they were, let's say, a decade ago.
Well, I think it's really important to highlight that type of information because, as I said in my post, you won't hear it on CNN or ABC or the other channels that this is occurring. When we hear about Chicago, the people getting shot. But there's some successful programs on the high school and college level in Chicago that are leading to disproportionate amounts of black men and women graduating to college.
It's like a 10% gap over a 10-year period from 63 to like 75, yeah.
And what's significant or relevant to that is how these schools have implemented culture affirmation and getting the young people to feel good about living in the body that they live in, so they can be focused enough to concentrate on the cognitive information that's coming because they've been distracted by self-doubt. And I was wondering while you were speaking, here in DC, do you have a program that address organic intelligence and culture affirmation, those kinds of elements to help keep our people connected to academics?
So I would say, having been on the job for 90 days, there are...
90 days?
Whole 90 days, yeah.
But to answer your question, I think that we find cultural affirmation not only in the classroom, but outside of the classroom, right? Students spend only about 30% of their time in a college education in the classroom. It's about what are we doing outside of the classroom? What are those wraparound services? And fortunately, the University of the District of Columbia we're responding in a proactive way, right? We are creating the spaces for commuter students to be able to sit in the library and study so that they don't have to detach themselves from the campus to go home. We are also looking at, how do you build in Women's History Month activities and Black History Month activities and Native American History Month activities and tie that to the curriculum so that there's the co-curricular aspect of rounding out what our students are having. And so I think in many regards, because our students are not the 18 to 22-year-olds, we are very proactive and intentional about what it is that we're trying to deliver with the wraparound services.
Kelly, Dr. Potter just talked about Women's History Month, and there's some real challenges that women are having in terms of matriculating in higher education, especially single moms, women who have other kinds of challenges. One of the challenges I found when I was president at Bennett is that how do you provide childcare for students? What's your perspective? You've been so passionate in talking about women's issues, so tell me your perspective on how, with all this financial aid trauma, women can matriculate and frankly thrive.
I think that the approach that Dr. Potter is taking from a holistic perspective is absolutely brilliant because you have to take into consideration exactly what your students need. And if a large body of your student population is women, what do women need? You need childcare. You need access to feminine products in the restroom. You need adequate feminine products in the restroom. You need education on sexual ed. I know that with UDC, the age is a lot higher in terms of the average age, so I'm sure they know. But like just traditional schooling, some of these kids are coming in from, who knows where. They didn't have
people, they don't like to be called kids.
You're a kid.
They do not like to be called kids.
You're a baby. Young adults, I apologize. But at the same time, nevertheless, even though they did just come through K through 12, a lot of them don't know about their own bodies yet. And this is actually the prime time that they're about to go explore them. So having the resources to feel safe enough to ask those questions to somebody who knows what they're talking about, that's definitely something that women could benefit from. I would also encourage, self-care techniques. I know a lot of young women who were in undergrad, at least when I was there, dealt with depression, dealt with, some really traumatic things, including rape and molestation and things like that. Having a safe space to talk about those things on top of, more curricula about women, that's definitely something that could be taken into consideration.
Well, one of the things UDC does, I'm a member of the UDC family through my television program now, go exclamation point, because whenever you see me, there is an exclamation point. But in any case, one of the things that UDC does is the Center for Diversity and Inclusion that really does. A young sister, Trinice McNally, really has done a lot of really great work in providing those kind of services. Now, Malik, you and Dr. Potter are homeboys.
Yes.
So,
Mississippi, even went to college together in Alabama. Well, I have to say, just right off the bat, that we are so proud of you.
Well, thank you.
We are so proud of you, and the fact
so
that
Malik will behave for you. He'll behave for you.
I mean, your credentials speak for themselves, but the fact that you brought that talent to the University of the District of Columbia, which happens to be the school that I actually finally received my degree from, because I'm one of those who went back later on in life. And so the steps that UDC has taken have been tremendous, and I so value you being there. So I just want to say, from Mississippi, thank you, brother. But to your point, you raised a very good point about exploring other avenues as far as just our education. In the District of Columbia here, they just have an infrastructure academy. And what that does, it trains them for a lot of the vocational. So whether you're talking about plumbing, carpentry, electric work, these are actual. I have a friend of mine, Perry, who is participating in the district's apprenticeship program. Perry's from Southeast DC, Condon Terrace. Perry's from Southeast DC, but this brother is making a life for himself and his applying, and he's actively engaged in it. He does construction, he does plumbing, but this brother is proud of the work that he does. And so we can just get more of those type of opportunities out there. You can make a middle class living outside of just graduating from college. And so these type of vocational trades, I think, are just, well,
once upon a time.
Yes. Mention something real quickly. You probably already know. I just met you, so I don't know how much you know. It's going to clear up a whole lot.
Well, I wanted the two of you to be together because I thought there was a lot of synergy.
But you mentioned, absolutely, that there's a small element of time that people spend in school compared to their whole lives. And what I want to just underscore is that the system does not affirm culture affirmation. It does not make Black culture affirmation an accessible thing like Starbucks or whatever else is going on in the culture. Sometimes people discover an opportunity through a great teacher that they finally met through these opportunities. And I think it's important to give students the equipment to be able to have critical analysis outside of school as a way of life, particularly as Black people in a white supremacist biased society, so they can thrive and navigate through here and still have their skin, literally and racially.
Dr. Potter, we're gonna.
Did that make any sense?
Yeah. It made enormous sense, and I want to roll it back to have you comment on what Cleo said, and to bring us back to the student loan issue. Because when you talked about Perry, I don't know how much loan debt Perry had to take, if he had to take any. So, Dr. Potter, both cultural affirmation and financial ability. How do you, as the Chief Academic Officer at the University of the District of Columbia, put these things together? And what? And And what would you tell our viewers about what they must do to ensure that things can get better?
So on the issue of cultural affirmation, I have to issue the disclaimer that they're not just going to get it in higher ed. It's got to start at home. It's got to start at home. Not even in the K through 12. It's got to start at home. And if I didn't learn anything as a kid, I was taught you need to read, and if we couldn't afford certain kinds of privileged programs, we went to the free programs at the library because you could go there and get a book. And my grandmother would always say, if you want to hide something from her, put it in a book because we don't read.
But that's not the truth. I hate that adage because you know 1836 North Carolina law, to teach a slave to read is to incite dissatisfaction to the detriment of the general population. A white person who taught a black person to read could be fined up to $200 in 1836, which was a who got worth of money. A black person could be flogged or jailed for teaching another black person. Yes, people were blinded because they learned how to read. So that, I don't know where we got that from. We probably got it clear from white people.
Probably.
Yeah, anyway, continue, Dr. Potter, I'm sorry.
I think it's also important to understand that whatever enrichment programs that the churches are providing, that the community-based organizations are providing, public-private partnerships are absolutely essential. And you really have to pull organizations in that look like you, who think like you, to create those partnerships. Because if you are trying to fleet to the suburbs and find that, it's going to be very kind of disconnected. And so the reality for me is that it's at every developmental level of the child's experience. It's the community, it's the home, it's the school, it's the social organizations that really instill cultural affirmation. Because I don't think that you're going to get it in one setting or in a particular kind of way. The other piece that we're talking about is this debt, right? And the reality is that students are making wise choices. Families are making wise choices. If you look at the demographic shifts in the U.S. today, Black and brown kids are not going to the 4-year institutions first. They're going to the 2-year institutions because it's about a question of affordability. And it's also about a question of access, right? And this notion of privilege and walking away from whatever opportunities that are laying on the table, people are not willing to sell their souls up the river anymore because of a price tag. And so I would say that we really have to get back to the real issues that are being debated by some of the Democratic candidates, not all of them, but what really makes sense for college tuition or higher education in this country. And I'm not suggesting that there is a one-size-fits-all, but we really need to begin to have serious conversations if those at the bottom are to decline.
Dr. Potter, thought-provoking, thank you very much. I'm going to move on right quick. We've talked before about how young black people are punished more often and more severely than whites. The Virginia newspaper has found that more than half of the state's disorderly conduct charges were filed against black men and women. The Daily Press and Newport News reported last week that more than 2,500 disorderly conduct charges were filed by police in Virginia last year. The numbers show that black Virginians are charged disproportionately at higher rates, and prosecutors statewide are less inclined to drop the charges against blacks than whites. There was also an ACLU report that was released this week about what happens in the District of Columbia. Black people more likely to be arrested. 99% of the people arrested for gambling were black. 76% of those with noise violations were black. And we go down the list. So Cleo, what's up with this? We know what's up with this, but what's up with this?
Well, we know what's up with this. It's the same old thing.
Same smell, different flavor?
Yeah, but I want to take the opportunity to say something since my mouth was moving. That I was wondering, because I think this is all relevant, if parenting could become an academic science. Because I'm inspired by saying that because you said, pardon me for going back, but it's still all relevant to me in terms of the big picture. You mentioned the importance of it starting at home, and I agree with that 100%. But I can tell you from experience and from research and from national surveys that most black children are not getting that at home. The curriculum is go to school, get a good education, go to church and get a job. That's the curriculum. Not learn to critically analyze white supremacy so you will not internalize a myth of your irrelevance because the media keeps on implying that.
Okay, Brother Ben,
So-
when I say we're kind of running out of time.
Okay, but these parents know how to raise black children, and they need to get degrees in it, I think.
I agree with you, but let's have a leak say something, because you know you always love your people who arrest our people. And in Virginia, they've shown it. In DC, they've shown it. Disproportionately arrest of black people. What you got to say?
Well, I'm glad you brought up DC because, of course, Republicans don't run DC. And
Oh, you just had to say that, didn't you?
Well, I'm just saying, these problems, when we're talking
The
about
police department go now, right?
But police departments around the nation. I don't think that there's any distinction between how they police themselves here in DC versus Virginia or Kentucky or any of the other places. Whatever statistics or data that's out there as far as the violence on black bodies, it's not isolated to any particular city. So obviously it's something that we need to continue to address. And a lot of that is locally, but whatever the federal government can do at its level, they should continue to do that too.
I'm not sure that under the Orange Man, the federal government is going to do anything useful about arresting disparities. But Kelly, what do you think?
I think that water is wet when you talk about Virginia having, an upsurge in disorderly conduct. People really forgot, I think, because you have articles like this and it feels like people forgot. Virginia was the home of the capital of the Confederacy. So why do you think that just because Northern Virginia got a lot of diversity doesn't mean the rest of that upside down triangle looking state has, doesn't have racial problems? So for me, when I heard about this, I was just like, okay, what's the solution?
Exactly.
What is the solution? And if you don't have a solution, then why write the article?
Well, they don't have solutions. I mean, you have folks, the ACLU report that was released here in D.C. I interviewed the woman who wrote the report on Monday for my show at the WPFW, and it was a very thorough report, but again, very thorough report. And all I said is, okay, so now you gave me numbers to what my gut was always thinking.
Right.
You know what? We have run out of time. This has been so much fun. I always love messing with you. I really do. But that's it for this edition of the Roland Martin Unfiltered. I'm Dr. Julianne Melvo. Thanks for joining us. Roland will be back tomorrow. He's playing golf somewhere. In the meantime, don't forget to sign up for Bring the Funk Fan Club. I mean, it's for real. If you want to see this kind of programming continue, sign up and contribute. And enjoy your evening. Holla!